After an inexperienced man gets his first teaching job at a middle school in a city, he realizes that the students are uneducated about the human reproductive system. So he takes it upon himself to teach the children, much to the anger of a local pastor. While working for a pittance at a donut shop, a miserable Ed witnesses a couple loving by the counter. The man eventually asks if they have a bathroom, and he says no because he figures they'll only use it to do chores. The customer then says he'll buy all the donuts if the clerk lets them use the bathroom, but Ed stands firm. The woman then recognizes the worker as the teacher in training who taught them geometry a few years ago, and her friend calls Ed a loser. When the man continues to deny the couple's request, the male customer grabs the donuts from the display case and throws them at the clerk. After work, Ed arrives at his apartment and sees his roommate JT making love to Ally his bed. He gets angry and tells his friend that he hasn't done it in his bed yet and that he just changed the sheets. JT apologizes and introduces the man to his new girlfriend. Moments later, Ed reads another rejection letter from a teaching job he applied for, prompting his roommate to reassure him that he deserves to be a teacher. Determined to get the job he wants, the man says he needs to actively look for a job instead of waiting. The next day, Ed storms into Mr. Washout's office and says they rejected his application without an interview. Impressed by his determination, the man checks his resume and hires him for a job opening at a middle school downtown. When he returns to the apartment, he finds JT and Ally getting ready to have fun in the living room. He tells the couple the good news and says it's an after-school program. Since commuting to school could be a problem in the future, Ed thinks it would be a good idea to find a place of his own closer to the new job. Although his roommate seems sad that this means they won't be seeing each other as much anymore, he says it's best that he and his girlfriend don't come across the man doing the deed anymore. Ed soon meets the new landlord, Sydney, who asks him to come down to her basement bar later to mingle with the other tenants. That night, the man heads to a bar and plays music. He shares that he was in the jazz band in high school and plays the oboe, and Sydney points out that his chosen instrument is not one that the ladies find sexy. During his first day at his new job, the excited teacher introduces himself to his students as an after-school coordinator. To his surprise, the kids don't seem excited to be there, so they explain that he's been assigned to oversee detention. Leon then asks the teacher if he'd like to hear him freestyle rap using his name. However, the student ends up using the man's name in an obscene way, which makes the other kids laugh. Suddenly, Shelly comes back from the bathroom crying and says she's going to die. Confused, Ed asks what she's talking about, and she says she has cancer because she's bleeding from her lower regions. The man realizes that this is the first time the student has gotten the time of her month, so he runs to the teacher's lounge to get a pack of feminine products. However, Shelly doesn't know how to use them, and when Ed asks if he can call her parents, she says her father is at work and she doesn't have a mother. So, the teacher asks Ally, a nurse, to come over and help with the situation. After school, Ed sees his student Tito waiting for his car outside the building. Suddenly, the teen's beautiful sister Pilar arrives, introducing herself to the man who has a crush on her. Moments later, the woman's boyfriend, Hector, arrives in his car to pick them up. At the bar, the teacher tells his friends how little his students seem to know about how their bodies work. Ally then points out that he can still teach kids about the reproductive system even though he is chaste. So JT defends his old roommate and says that he has experience doing the deed before. However, the friend thinks that it has been a long time since Ed has been with a woman and encourages him to fool around with several women before dating a lady he truly likes. The next day, the teacher takes on the responsibility of educating his students about the reproductive system so they don't go through life uninformed. When Leon keeps interrupting class to make dirty jokes, the upset man asks him to go to the principal's office. The student begs him to reconsider, afraid of what his father might do to him if he finds out he's been acting up at school, but Ed stands firm in his decision. Later, in the bathroom, the teacher overhears Leon's father, Reverend Hamilton, berating his son and washing his mouth out with soap in the sink. Ed steps in and explains that he runs an after-school program to educate children about the changes their bodies undergo during puberty. However, Reverend Hamilton retorts that such conversations belong in the home between a parent and child, not with a teacher he barely knows and trusts. That night, the man meets his blind date Trish at a bar, and Sydney overhears the awkward small talk. Eventually, The drunk woman takes the teacher to the storage room to make out. Suddenly, Trish begins to cry and laments that men only date her because she has a good reputation as a love partner. So, Ed comforts her and reassures her that she is a nice person and says that they don't need to do anything physical on a first date. However, the woman takes his respectful gesture and assumes that he is not into her because he is attracted to men. After his date leaves, the teacher returns to the bar and Sydney tells him that she knew the moment Trish walked in that the man wasn't interested. He admits that he wasn't that into the woman, but he had to lower his standards because he hadn't done the deed in a while. So, the landlady says that not getting any action doesn't make him any less of a man. She adds that he needs to stop whining about being broke and not having a girlfriend. The next day, the teacher discusses the many diseases that one can contract through lovemaking. He says that the only way to prevent transmission is to abstain from all intimate acts, but if one chooses to engage, they should use protection. Since the students don't take his advice seriously, Ed shows them a slideshow of pictures of diseases. Eventually, the man teaches his students the proper way to use male prophylactics. After school, Tito asks Ed for advice because he wants to do the deed with his girlfriend Margarita. So, the man tells him that he shouldn't rush into things just because he wants to do the same things he sees on the internet. Moments later, Pilar arrives and reveals that Ed is her brother's favorite teacher. She then asks him to have dinner at their house tonight because their mother wants to meet him. That evening, he meets the student's mother, Lupe, who asks him to help prepare dinner. Hector then arrives, and Pilar introduces the two men to each other. While setting the table, the woman shares that she works as a DJ and would invite the teacher to her shows if he was available. Once she heads to the kitchen, the friend appears and offers Ed a shot of rum. Hector then remarks on how strange it is that a teacher would accept an invitation to have dinner at his student's house, implying that he knows he is attracted to Pilar. After taking multiple shots of alcohol since his arrival, the man splashes water on his face in the bathroom to sober up. During the meal, Hector notices the disturbed look on Ed's face and challenges him to eat a fisheye. The teacher swallows the fisheye, but immediately regrets his decision after vomiting on Lupe. Embarrassed, the man storms out of the house and heads to the bar. The landlady assures him that she's had her fair share of humiliating experiences and he shouldn't let one bad night stop him from pursuing the woman of his dreams. The next day, Ed asks JT and Ally to help him teach the students how to respectfully communicate with the opposite gender. The female students then enthusiastically urge his handsome former classmate to show off his muscles and show off his abs. The teens soon sit in front of the guests and ask questions about specific scenarios they might find themselves in the future. After class, the pair realize that they lied about how little the students know about their bodies and the dynamics of gender. Later, while Ed and Tito are hanging out outside the school, Pilar arrives and shares that she and Hector are taking a break because her boyfriend was being possessive. So, the man invites her to a bar on Thursday night to see an Afro-Cuban jazz band, and she accepts. The next day, the teacher is called into Washout's office because Pastor Hamilton complained about his class. Ed insists that he's just teaching his students about general teen health issues, but the man says they can't do that in the area, especially since the pastor has started a petition against it specifically. He adds that his students need the class because half of them are already experimenting. So Washout suggests that he talk to Pastor Hamilton in person and plead his case. Later, Ed sees that there are more students than usual, so they explain that they heard about the class and wanted to join. However, the man says that he can't teach them their usual lesson today, prompting the newcomers to storm out of the room. He then talks to Tito in the hallway and asks the teen if he's okay with him dating his sister, and she assures him that he's fine. After work, Ed speaks with the pastor, who explains that human reproduction shouldn't be taught in schools because if God is taken out of the equation, teenagers will accept it as a natural biological act and do it more often. So, the teacher suggests that he attend one of his classes so he can see that they treat the subject with the respect and sensitivity it deserves, and the latter says he'll be there. Later, the man heads to his old apartment and tells JT that he's going on a date with Pilar. In the bedroom, the friend says that he should change his usual dating tactic from taking things slow and being more aggressive when it comes to initiating intimacy. The teacher then gives him medication, which he claims can help improve the man's performance. During the next class, Pastor Hamilton watches from the back of the room and listens to Ed answering written questions from the students. But as the questions become less scientific and more vulgar, the stunned man leaves. When the teacher pursues him, the pastor says that he's only pandering to the students and encouraging their worst instincts. He adds that he gave the man a chance, but everything he saw simply reinforced his decision to close the program. After class, Tito asks Ed for a prophylactic, claiming that his girlfriend finally wants to do the deed. The man refuses, believing that the student is too young to be engaging in intimate activities that could have serious consequences. However, the teen says that he will do it anyway whether the teacher gives him a prophylactic or not. During the date, Ed confesses that he gave Tito a prophylactic, angering Pilar, who says that he should have told her so she could stop her brother. The two soon storm the house and catch the teen kissing Margarita on the couch. Pilar asks the girl and the teacher to leave so she can talk to Tito. When Ed says that he can stay, the angry woman says that it is all his fault for giving the student a prophylactic and teaching him how to use it. As he walks back to his car, Hector confronts him for dating Pilar and beats him up. After the altercation, the teacher grabs the cortisone and parks her in a dark alley. To prepare for the deed, Ed takes the medicine JT gave him, pretending it was for his headache. However, before he can put the bottle away, Cortisone takes one herself. Moments later, the man sees a male organ protruding from under the cortisone gown, revealing that she is not a woman. Suddenly, the police arrive and arrest the couple for unlawful dealing. When he finally returns to his apartment, Ed tells JT that he has never slept with a woman before. The friend admits that he always knew this all along, and no one believed his fictional stories. The former roommate adds that he need not worry about it too much because it will happen eventually. The next day, the teacher finds Washout waiting for him in the empty classroom. The man says that the after-school program has been canceled, so he can find someone new, implying that he has been fired. Days later, Ed returns to his old job at the donut shop and Sydney stops by to see how he is doing. The man recounts the events that have taken place over the past few days that have led him to his current situation. He believes that if he could only do the act once, he would have gained the confidence he needs. So, the landlady says that he needs to stop blaming it on his inexperience with women and start thinking about what he needs to do to become the man he wants to be. The next day, Ed apologizes to Pilar for what happened and explains that he was just trying to do the right thing. He adds that he loves the woman and wants to prove it with a grand gesture. The man then picks up his flute and plays her a song even though he is not very good at it. Later, while walking around town, they share a kiss by the river. Eventually, the woman says that she wants to take him to her favorite club tonight. That evening, Pilar greets the bouncer Bobby at the door but refuses to let Ed in. So, the woman says that she will go in to greet her friends and he can just wait for her so they can go somewhere else. After she leaves, the bouncer tells Ed to go home because his date will never leave the club, which means that she is way above his standards. Suddenly, Hector shows up to confront the man about his date with Pilar again and a fight ensues. Soon, the police arrive and arrest both men for public affray. Later at the bar, Ed realizes he needs his job back and decides to talk to Pastor Hamilton tomorrow. The next day, the teacher rallies his students and crashes the pastor's support group meeting. The man reveals that he has never done the task with a woman and that he sometimes wonders if he is qualified to teach the subject. However, he insists that what he is teaching the students is necessary because if they did not learn this in school, they will likely pick up misinformation from their friends or the internet. Eventually, the teens show their support for the teacher by sharing the knowledge they now know that has taught them to be more careful in the future. Leon adds that there are some topics he cannot talk to his father about. Finally, the pastor understands the importance of Ed's class and allows him to continue. Later, one of the support group attendees tells the teacher how impressed she is with his determination. She then shows the man her bare chest and says he can call her anytime he wants. That evening, Pilar shows up at Ed's apartment and congratulates him on getting his job back. She adds that Tito told her about the teacher's admission that he never committed the act. The woman then kisses the man and begins to undress in the bedroom, but Ed says they should hang out and party with his friends at the bar first. Suddenly, Pilar says she wants to be the man's first love interest. However, the teacher politely turns her down, explaining that he doesn't want to do the deed just so he can say he did it. The woman says that she doesn't really like the bar and would rather go to a club. So, he reminds her that the last time they went, he was stuck outside waiting for her. Pilar promises that this time will be different and that she is just trying to make him cooler. The teacher realizes that he and the woman may not be as compatible as he originally thought. Seconds later, she sarcastically tells him that he should remain chaste for the rest of his life, to which he replies that that is okay. At the bar, Ed laments that he still hasn't done the deed, and Sydney tells him that he is a man now that he is finally in control of his life. A year later, the teacher is now one of the most popular classes in the school, earning the respect of all the students.